Welcome to Executives at the Edge, a podcast brought to you by MEF. I'm your host, Pascal Menezes. Join me as we explore thought-provoking perspectives from the leaders and changemakers who are propelling enterprise digital transformation forward. I'm so very excited to have Rohit Batra. He's the GM and VP of Manufacturing, Telecommunications, Media, and Technologies for ServiceNow. And today's episode is going to be really extraordinary. We're going to cover everything about intent-based networking, agentic AI, how network as a service is going to be appearing with the ability to interact with applications through programming APIs, and finally, why standards play a critical role to bring this whole environment together and at very rapid speeds with the evolution of how AI is coming out. So with that, Rohit, welcome to Executives at the Edge. And Rohit, for our listeners, can you give us a little bit of background about yourself and ServiceNow?
Thank you, Pascal, for having me. So my background, I've spent 25 odd years in the technology industry, mainly focused in telecommunications, vertical technology, and recently in the manufacturing industry-specific area as well. I've been on the product side, focused on applications that's been in the BSS and OSS domain. And I've been at ServiceNow for about 4.5 years. And my focus at ServiceNow is to build industry-specific applications for TMT with a focus on telecommunication and technology, and then also manufacturing. As an organization, ServiceNow, we are the platform company which is focused on orchestration and delivering end-to-end customer journeys, being the orchestration and system of action for our customers. Over the past 4.5 odd years, what we've started to do is to verticalize our products to be able to be applicable to individual industries. And we looked at the core industries for ServiceNow, and telecommunication was one of the first ones that we launched in the market. And essentially within the telecommunication industry, what ServiceNow really focuses on is on the OSS domain to really look at our service management expertise, service assurance domain, and the area of network management, planning and building of networks. And then if you move on to the BSS side, the focus of customer service, which is industry-specific for ServiceNow, and adaptation of that into other domains such as order management. And recently, we've entered the foray of CPQ and opportunity management as well. So if you think about the OSS BSS footprint, our focus is everything that happens on when CPQ or an opportunity has been created, all the way to managing the network and making sure that the order is fulfilled, and then making sure that the assurance capabilities are also tracked and workflows associated to it.
Well, Rohit, that is quite a lot of work that you guys have been doing. And I know that you started in IT service management, right, in the enterprises. And now you've moved into the telecommunications space and many other verticals, as you stated. And I think really what's really interesting, can you talk a little bit about autonomous networks? I know we're seeing the idea of networks self-healing, be very autonomous, and we'll get into AI here in a second, but what's your thoughts about autonomous networks?
Yeah, look, I think, so ServiceNow's history has been in the IT side, to your point, and I think what we saw in IT was, the networks were, in some cases, there was remediation applications that actually went forward in IT first. And if you look at the telecom networks, the intent about making those networks more softwareized, and we saw that trend where networks were becoming more and more virtualized and were being managed through automation. That trend came in later, after the IT. So we had a lot of expertise in doing that on the IT side, and we brought that expertise into the core network. And as that trend and shift happened, and as our capabilities in automation continued to grow and expand, we could amalgamate those experiences into what's happening in network. So the world of autonomous networks, that's an area we're seeing a lot of customers being interested in. There's a lot of initiatives that we're seeing, especially in Europe and some parts of the US, where that's becoming a core strategy for our customers. It's all focused on making sure that they can drive better value of the networks, better experiences for their customers, reducing cost and bringing more automation and self-driving. So for us, that vision, the core essence of that vision is orchestration, is automation, is a workflow. And for us, coming from a workflow-centric approach, being in the platform, which is really what we are built on, that became very easily adaptable in that environment. So that's where we've leaned in specifically on. as we look to our customers, when you look at autonomous networks between level 0 to level 5, I think a lot of our customers would claim that they are between level 2 and level 3 at the moment. But the aspiration is go to fully autonomous networks and make sure that they can drive all the way from planning and build to managing and maintaining and remediating the networks, mainly going into lights out knock at some point in time in the future.
So when you mean autonomous networks, is it self-driving networks? Like my self-driving Tesla?
Yeah, well, in a way, I think so. I think it's mainly making sure that, and if an issue comes in onto the network from a monitoring system, you identify the issue, you identify the resolution based on historical trends and what's actually worked in the past. You kick off a workflow that actually is driven for that particular issue. That workflow then drives a series of actions and tasks. Those tasks inform a human in the loop, so it's not necessarily for making sure that the human is acting on anything, but it informs it and then executes on that plan. And basically, the telecom operator or the CSP knows what's happened, but doesn't need to get involved. And I think that's the vision about it. Now, there's a lot of work that needs to happen. Applications in this domain have historically been fragmented. The interfaces have, in some cases, have been proprietary. And that all needs to open up. There's an investment that's required in terms of building application stacks that are actually naturally going to talk to each other. And all of that needs to come together to make it work. So as simple as it sounds, I think to make that happen, just like in the case of an autonomous car, it sounds very simple, but the kind of decisions that need to happen is probably just as complicated in a network architecture as well.
Well, very, very fascinating. Now, let's change topic here. There's this, for years, I remember I started way back, I think 10 years ago, about intent-based kind of networks and, intent-based ideas. You said an intent, I want to go from here to there, like I want to go to the airport and I want the cheapest, but I want to get there in a very timely manner. What's my options? And so what do you think about intent? Like, you see, AI is going to come and drive a lot of things. We'll talk about AI in a second, but how can you deliver intent-based customer order recommendations, enhance the customer experience and streamline operations? How will these technologies evolve?
But I think the intent portion of it is fascinating because there's various interpretations of it. Intent is not the main driver for intent-based ordering or intent-based engagement. It's the fact that everything that a customer needs cannot be articulated or cannot be shared. The customer doesn't oftentimes know what he or she really wants. They know the outcome that they want to achieve, but they won't be able to tell you that this is the kind of configuration of the network that they want from the CSP. And the intent really is to drive from a conversation that's slightly different. Rather than typically what happens today, you go to let's take an enterprise customer. If a telco goes to an enterprise customer, they ask about what kind of network do you want? Do you want do you want a failover? Do you want like a protection network? What's the capacity? What kinds of throughput are you looking for? How many hops to this? Now, unless you've actually done this many times before, that's not the kind of information that every business could be able to provide. And I think if you turn that around and say, what is the outcome that you're trying to achieve? What kind of data loads are you going to run? How often are you going to run it? What kind of security that you are actually looking for? If you have that conversation, it should then drive the configuration of the network and then help define what the CSP delivers. I think it changes that conversation altogether. And I think that's both a cultural shift, and then technology has a role to play to it, to basically make sure that those conversations that are happening or the business outcome starts being shared by the customer gets converted into a configuration spec that eventually gets configured onto the network. And I think that's the shift that we have to make. So I do think intent plays a role across technology, but also across the way CSPs then operate and speak to their customers and treat them.
Yeah, so what you're saying is intent is a high-level declarative kind of language that says, I want to go from here to there and give a little bit of some constraints about what it is, but not figure out all the little details like, going in and looking, if I go by train, what it look like? What if I go by car? I just give the constraints, and what I want to do is a high-level goal or experience, and then let the system come back with all my options, right? Is that
for example, if you look at a hospital and a hospital goes into a telco, rather than saying every specific configuration entity that they want to do, they will say, we need it for remote surgery. Then we need a network to provide remote surgery. And now the CSP has to figure out what does remote surgery network typically need? And what kind of networks does it need? What kind of capacity does it need? How am I going to deliver that? I'm going to make sure, assure it. That stuff is, that onus is left now onto the CSP to identify as opposed to the customer to provide. And I think that's really where intent plays a pretty critical role.
Yeah, and I think with intent now, we're getting this idea, obviously, with agentic AI.
Yes.
So, agentic AI, I just read an article today, they think it's the next biggest thing since the internet. Obviously AI, Gen AI, but agentic AI is more powerful because with agentic AI, think of every application's infused with AI, but instead of hard coding a logic, you can set an intent to this agentic AI kind of application and let the application have the autonomy to figure out and break down the procedures it needs to do, right? And come back with, outcomes of how it wants to achieve it. And instead of hard coding, it means it has the ability to reason, which is really powerful. So it would work across all kinds of models, go out in foundational models, and then come back with the set of answers. So it's going to be mind-blowing how it's going to change the industry. Any thoughts about how agentic AI will play into this?
I loved what you described, but I'll take a step back, because when you look at today's news and press and marketing that happens, I mean, just like every other hype that's happened in the industry, I think agentic AI is at the same place where people are masking some basic AI foundational stuff also as agentic AI. And I think there's a very significant difference between regular AI, generative AI, and then agentic AI. And the way you described it is exactly how agentic AI is, which is the fact that it has to be built on reasoning. It has to be built on an outcome. It has to be built on, things that it needs to figure out on its own. And then also reflection, saying, has this process worked and will I do it the next time again? That is not what generative AI is. Generative AI is just a question and answer. It's a mechanism of asking an LLM a way to respond to an ask that I have. But the whole element of reasoning and reflection and all of that stuff, that doesn't happen in generative AI. But today in the market, there's a lot of confusion or there's a lot of context that's being put across. Everything is being wrapped as agentic AI. And I think we need to find a way as an industry to make sure that we identify agentic AI as completely something different. But the power of what that could do, the ability of what agentic AI could do is very significant. I'll give you a use case that we're working on right now, especially in telecommunications. If you have a case or a customer case that's open because there's a broadband not working or internet not working, what we've built is the ability for you to run agentic AI that takes that case, understands what is the network entity that's actually being associated to it, goes ahead and looks at if there are other open cases that have been closed or have had similar kind of information in them, then goes to knowledge articles and then figures out there may be a knowledge article that might have a path to getting resolution. If neither of them have that information, it tries to run, select certain diagnostic tools that needs to be executed so it can find out exactly where in the network there might be an issue. And all of that is happening through reasoning at that point. We've just given it a bunch of prompts and said, here are the prompts that you need to execute. It gets all that information together and then comes up with a recommended resolution based on historical context, based on what has got in the diagnostic results, and sends that back to the customer if there is a human that needs to be involved, and ask them if with supervision saying, can it execute the particular action that it's identified? And then you can go and do it. Now even that ask could be automated so that everything is fully done on the background. But that ability to then execute all of those things on itself, those kinds of diagnostics entities, and just doing diagnostics and understanding what's done in the past and so on, that could take anywhere between 35 to 40 minutes typically today in telecom. And it's basically manual work. In this case, agentic AI can take that all away and run it on the background, make sure it comes up with a recommendation while the agent has gone away to do something completely different, and then execute that task and hopefully get the network back up and running. So we're seeing some really significant improvements that it can provide, both in terms of customer experience and then the operational cost and the experience that it can deliver to the internal resources as well.
Yeah, no, it is absolutely phenomenal. I can remember 2022 was Gen AI, the big wave. Then 2023 was RAG, Algorithm Retrieval Augmentation Generation. And that was like hard coding logic and a programmer to develop it. Now with agentic AI, there's the idea that the AI, the agent or the application can think and reason for itself is mind-blowing. And there's not a lot of coding involved. There's some coding for speed, but it's just really mind-boggling. The speed that AI is moving at in our industry is just uncanny. And so let's move on. So when we think about network as a service, what's your thoughts on this? How important do you feel that this NAS is going to play to provide interoperability and a cloud-like service delivery model for networks, so telecom in general? What's your thoughts around this?
Look, I think if you look at the industry in telecommunication, we've had single-digit growth for the past many years. As an industry, it's not that the big significant margins and the significant kind of growth rates that we were seeing in early 2000s is diminished now. So for the industry to continue to evolve and operate and see and ward off competition that's coming in from especially hyperscalers, there is a lot of work that needs to happen in terms of softwareizing the network and making sure capabilities such as NAS are going to be core and central for the telecom providers. And for me, NAS is one of the core entities of what is going to transform in the network. Obviously, customers have been in the journey for many years, and we've seen that to happen from some of the customers, and like in Australia and others. But I think this will be a cornerstone of our customers to continue to evolve, because for them to be able to provide those experiences, have developers to be able to create very easily applications that are sitting on top, have the networks exposed in such a way that you can consume network at the same way that you consume compute or getting that kind of experiences delivered. I think that is going to be transformative for the telecommunications industry. We've talked about it for many years. I think the real life applications and adaptation of NAS is still not in prime time. While some customers have seen significant success and have talked about the merits of it, but I think that will be an evolution that will continue to happen in 2025 and beyond.
Yeah, and I think the MEF-NAS is about the ability to have an on-demand underlayer connectivity with overlays like SD-WAN, with cybersecurity built in, and cloud, multi-cloud, all wrapped with automation, to the enterprise and to the whole ecosystem supply chain. But I think what we're seeing now is NAS is also evolving to developers that can interact with the network through APIs, simple programming APIs, so they can influence the network or do things to the network. I think that's, the Chimera from Linux Foundation as being a big thing. And we're now embarking on how will our NAS, the MEF-NAS, morph and evolve into this network API portfolio, which we're building in already from the enterprise. So stay tuned for that. We're doing a lot of work on that. And we announced at our GNE, our Global NAS event here in October, our SIM, our Incident Maintenance API, which is a way of an automation at the IT side, working with the service provider for incident maintenance issues. And we're going to keep evolving that, including adding Chimera API. So really fascinating topic here. So, Rohit, to round out this episode, what do you think about standards? I mean, MEF's a standard, TM Forum's a standard. How do you see standards really participating in this fast-moving world of telecommunication that's moving to a cloud-like experience, and there's so many parts and pieces and ecosystems have to go together?
I think if you look at the environment right now, whether that's the innovation that's happening in AI, whether that's things that we spoke about in terms of NAS and how it's going to evolve, I think it's important that people learn from each other and learn from each other's experiences. But as an industry, we need to move faster, and we need to move to innovation at a faster pace than we've done historically before, because the technology is moving faster than it's ever been. And it's still the slowest that will ever be. So if you look at that, when you look at industry standards, and the ability for us to be able to work with industry standards is going to be critical, because there is no time to build customized integrations, customized workflows, customized orchestration, because we don't have the time to wait for that to evolve, because the tech is moving quickly as we can, and the competition is coming from places that are not traditional for the CSP industry. So personally, for me, the work that's happened in MEF, the work that's happened in TM Forum, and more simply, the work that's happened collectively between MEF and TM Forum working together in the recent announcement that Pascal, you guys had done recently, I think that's for me is extremely exciting, because that will be a critical role for us to make sure that we can all work together. And rather than spend time in building one integration after the other, we are moving progressively in a systematic way and making use of these technologies and the innovation that's happening in AI and trying to adopt that for our businesses. So for us as ServiceNow, as an organization, we are fully behind the effort of doing the supporting standardization into our applications and products, and then also influencing it based on experiences that we have of working with customers globally.
Yeah, I know, really well said. And I think the lesson here for standards body is you cannot spend 2 to 4 years to deliver something. That's too long. The market's changed already. So standards body have to really run at a rate like startups and deliver, value to their members at the speed of the technology innovation. And so, our APIs are shipping every 6 months. The way we've transformed internally inside our organizations is we hire contracts to do the editing and write the APIs, and our members are just subject matter experts who are coming in saying, not just, but very important, something saying, here's what we really want as an outcome. Here's, some of the subject matter expertise, but I'm not going to do that low-level work. So, but let's get that done. Let's not spend 2 years to get, ratified and consensus. Let's put it out there rapidly, get, feedback, and then go back from there and continue to iterate. So much more like an agile development as we see all of the cloud technologies. So really brilliantly well said, Rohit, that we do not have time, but yet the standards organization should work together, and we are trying to do that very much so. But I think the other aspect is if you don't have standards, then you're going to have proprietary APIs all over the place, and it's going to be a nightmare. So, one vendor, one provider will be this way, another provider, and so you have this N-square problem, this bespoke problem that just becomes unmanageable for the IT team. So is that how your thoughts are?
Absolutely agree. I think the proprietary standards, the world of proprietary standard has long gone. I strongly believe that customers have at least recognized the fact that they have to move to industry standards. Now, how quickly we move and how quickly the standards evolve so that we can embrace the technologies that are coming into the market, I think that's what is yet to be done. But I think building those customized integrations for whether it's within applications, whether it's north-south, or it is east-west, going from partners to retailers to third-party vendors or whatever, end customers, I think that part of it, regardless of which way the data is flowing, those integrations have to follow a standardized paradigm. And then the innovation, and I think this is where we oftentimes have conversations with customers where they want to be different and they want to have a market differentiation. I think the hope is that customers recognize, and when I say customers, I mean CSPs recognize the fact market differentiation is not going to be on integration. Market differentiation is going to be on the value and the experience that you deliver to your customers. But the era in which integration was the differentiation in the market, that's gone away. So getting onto the fact that you have to build standardized integrations so that you're spending your time and your talent in building experiences that are differentiated in the market, I think that's really going to be the focus that we want to drive.
Well, Rohit, well said. As always, you bring in such a great enlightenment to everything. So with that, we will end this episode and with some great reflections to think about how we have to move forward in the AI and the intent-driven world and so on. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Pascal.
Thanks for joining us for Executives at the Edge. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe today. Share online a review. Find all our episodes on your favorite podcast platform and at MEF.net.